Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Maniac, episode 5. It's called Exactly Like You. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. So, Seance in the 40s or whatever it is. Now owns a rich sort of,
Smug bastard.
smug. Okay, I was going to go for more of a proper term, but yeah, sure, smug bastard. He is going to the seance, but he's going there to perform a bit of a heist. He's going to try and steal this final chapter of a secret book that's magical and shit. And he's got on his own. He's got a driver and all the rest of it. And immediately I was thinking to myself, okay, so he's kind of like the rest of his family, at least to an extent. Like there's there's some parallels here with what the rest of his family's like. And then he runs into Annie, who's just standing there on the street, like she's just appeared.
Yeah. Do you know what? This is one of those shots that I vividly remember from the trailer. Is her in the headlights and her turning around.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's a pretty notable shot.
Yeah.
But she gets in and he's like, nah, whatever you do, you take her away from here. I don't want her anywhere near here. Drive her to Atlantis. And he said that like it wasn't even like a joke, which is something I really noticed. It wasn't even a joke. It was just drive her to Atlantis.
I thought he said Atlanta.
No, because then the driver said, I'll need a boat to get to Atlantis.
Yeah, I just assumed a boat would be easy. I don't know. I think I just heard what I expected to hear.
No, he said Atlantis, and then the boat comment made perfect sense.
See, they didn't make that much. It didn't seem that unusual. It's like, oh, I'll need a boat to do that. That'd be. It didn't seem that unusual.
I'm sure he said Atlantis. People can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure he said Atlantis.
You could be right. And like I said, I just heard what I expected to, because Atlanta would make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
But you might be right.
So despite the fact that he traps on the car and the driver drives her off, she still shows up at the party. This idea that keeps showing up. But this time, unlike last time...
I was half expecting her to just be there already when he got there.
Unlike last time, we do actually cut back to the lab. And it's funny, we were speculating this back in the end of episode 3 when we were saying what they might do with these worlds. I think we actually at one point said specifically, the first one will be uninterrupted, but then once we've got a gist of what the format's like, they'll start cutting back to the scientists. And that's exactly what they did. Because last time...
It makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, last time was uninterrupted. This time we started cutting back, and Azumi's kind of like, well, that's not right. And she's got the this flight simulator joysticks, and she's trying to separate them. And every time she does, like, Annie pops out of existence, which clearly says that this is more his world than hers, even though it still relates to her, because obviously when she's questioned later by Thoreau...
Yeah, it still feels like more her episode overall, even though we start with Owen, and, he has a lot of beats. The core thematic elements feel more related to her.
I think you could read into that to say that he's the sort of person who lets people take advantage of him, and she always overpowered his side of it because she's more notable. She's more aggressive with her feelings, and obviously there's some things here. The fact that again they're up to no good. Her specifically wants to steal the thing. I think for him, this idea in this world that he wants to, he keeps saying, no, I work alone. No, I'm a solo man. I work alone. This idea that he's kind of been forced by that by his family because everyone always like lets him down. So he's kind of shut himself off naturally that way.
Yeah, it's exactly what we got in episode 1 with him, making his own way for better or worse.
Kind of, yeah. But here he's dreaming that he's just as successful. he's the best at what he does. He's this. Yeah. Upper class, thief.
It's essentially that his independence paid off.
Yeah, and he's doing that, and he doesn't want to be with this wife, this or ex-wife as the case is in this one. What I thought was interesting when they were together and they referenced like what happened when they split up and how she set him up and he went away to prison for X number of years. I thought that all sounds like a weird retcon version of how the last one ended, because they mentioned that he confessed that he did it, and that's how the last one kind of ended. And I was like, it's not exactly the same, but it's almost like it's mushing what happens.
Do you know what it is?
Fits in the next one.
It's about as accurate as the truck story. What we saw versus what we were told. This is what we saw versus what they say. It's kind of not, it's in the ballpark, and the overall results are the same, but just some details changed.
Yeah. And when you think that she has got one over on him, it turns out he was hired to test the security. So he was going to steal it the whole time, and he pulls the card trick where he switches it with the card because he's doing basic magic tricks earlier, and it's actually Greta who's hired him, because at one point we cut back and the doctors are like, wait, Greta, we've got a problem. Greta's depressed. She's put herself inside the system.
Gertie.
Sorry, Gertie.
Yeah, but Gertie's an acronym. Greta isn't.
You're still adding letters to make it work.
Sure, but I mean, a lot less for Greta.
Sure, but Gertie is in there and she's depressed, and you get the sense that she's probably depressed because of Muramoto dying, which is why I think it's notable that when she pops up as the person who's running this house, and it's her that owns all this stuff, that she's got Muramoto there, but he's like a zombie with like this head dress on.
Yeah.
Like she's just kind of keeping him around in her memory because she wants him around, and she's upset that he's not there anymore.
And she basically says that, Annie asks, "Oh, well, what's wrong with him?" She says, "Oh, it's hard to keep hold of the ones that we've lost."
Yeah, which of course relates to Annie's story as well, because she's trying to keep hold of her sister. And what's really notable though is every time they zap her out at Owen's story, she wakes up still in her fancy gown and the makeup and all that, but she's in the lab, and it's not the real lab, but it's like that's kind of the representation that she wakes up in.
Yeah.
And she sees like a little girl version of herself the first time, and the second time she sees her and her sister both as little kids, and they're hiding, and you can tell that she takes care of her little sister. That's kind of what it's showing as, which comes back up later when she's interviewed. And I think the interviews, that's the biggest scene of the episode, I think, is the interview.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Where
the rest of it's almost just dressing, and here's some fun plot, and the other stuff there.
It's
but
dressing,
the interview is really the meat.
There's also some slow build up with some other stuff, like the fake brother, who he tells us. I mean, whether this is true or not is up to debate, but that he actually did exist technically, and that he was the twin of his brother that he strangled in the womb. So he was never born, and what he's seeing is the dead twin brother, which is.
I mean, could be, maybe not.
Yeah, why not? And again, it's just this one scene. Yeah.
When I said, the rest of it's kind of dressing, I don't mean that to diminish it. It's still very fun. I enjoyed it.
But I still think there's things here or there that you can actually read into, though. Even
there are things, yeah.
The scene where they have to go through a mirror to get to the safe, and it's basically like they flip the mirror around, and then the background's changed, and they're in a different location. That's notable.
It plays into the idea of all these fresh starts, all these different worlds. They're the same, and everything around them changes.
Well, I think it's that, but it's also the whole idea of the B pills reflection. It's about accepting who you are. It's about looking at the reflection. So there's a lot of there's a lot of these little thematic touches that are all just kind of bubbling up. But they wake her up and they sit her down, and Thoreau's there, and he's like, "Hey, we've got a pointer behind me. That's the scoreboard, and every time we ask you a question, it'll go up or down, and you need a score of a 9.2 or higher to stay in the trial, or you're gone." And again, it's about defense mechanisms. About, is she honest about what she's saying? Has she learned anything? Has she accepted anything from what she's learned inside these worlds? And she says, "Yeah, I remember. I remember 2 worlds, but I know there was dozens, and if not hundreds."
She got the feeling that was hundreds. Yeah, like all happening at the same time, but there was only 2 that she remembers vividly.
Yeah, but the 2 that we saw are the ones that she remembers vividly. Interesting detail. Someone actually said this to us in the comments for the last episode, and I'm not sure if it was a spoiler because they'd already watched this one, or if it was something that we could have noticed in the last one. But they mentioned that the character in the last one was the mother of the guy who was driving the truck.
I don't think they mentioned that last time.
They didn't mention it, but I'm wondering if there was something you could pick up on. If not, that was just a straight up spoiler, and I'd say don't do that. If there's details from later episodes, we'll get there when we get there. It does recontextualize.
I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and assume they didn't realize. They just mixed up which episode it was in. Sure,
yeah, that's possible. But it does recontextualize that entire scene where Nell, all of a sudden, as she says in the scene in this episode, that whole thing was almost a fantasy of her contributing to him never being born. Because that's the thing that the woman said was, "Oh, maybe you should just not have kids." Like, that's what the mother wanted to tell her. And I said, "No, well, too late. It's happening." Yeah, so those parallels kind of go back.
I think it's interesting going back to that even in this almost fantasy world, she's too late. She failed ultimately.
Yeah. So and again, and he asked some straight up questions. I don't think I expected all of the analysis that we were pulling last episode, and then obviously this episode again with the
kind of make it easy for
seance.
us, don't they?
Yeah, where he just starts saying this represented that, this represents this. What do you think this represents? He's like, oh, I'm depressed, and I'm struggling to accept the loss of my sister. What I thought was really notable, because obviously you've got this counter, the points going up behind him, right? It kept going up in like 0.3, 0.4 every now and then, depending on the answers when she was being honest. And at one point she gave an honest answer, but she said she wasn't suicidal or something to that effect. And it never changed. She said, no, that's true. That's true. Like, why,
Yeah, because it didn't go down, because when she lies, it goes down.
Yeah. What I did notice, though, and I thought this was very interesting, is that it went up from 3.9 to like 8.2 or something. It was like a giant jump.
It was a huge leap.
When she accepted... And when she said that she was scared of acting like her mother, because we find out that the version of her in the seance world is kind of based on her mother, where she would charm anyone into doing anything. And we know that she does take advantage of people, but she's not necessarily charming as she does it. She's kind of like the most uncharming con artist ever. but she's terrified of that. But instead of not conning people, she's just not being charming while doing it. So I thought that was interesting, that it was basically her accepting her core, or probably her most core flaw, especially when you find out that she protected her little sister when her parents were fighting, and then when they were older, her sister took care of her, because she was good as a big sister as a kid, but when they got older, her sister was more responsible, more of an adult, basically. And the idea that not only is about her sister being lost, is that she was supposed to protect her sister, and it kind of all goes back to protecting her from their mother. So she's got mother issues. Yeah. Which again ties into what happened last episode with the, not having kids and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting thing in itself, because obviously we know that she still speaks to her father, and we were like, okay, but what happened with the mother?
Yeah.
I was, even at that point in the episode, it was either, okay, she's either dead or she left. And no way to know which at the time.
Yeah.
But but there's more to it.
She clearly left, and now she doesn't know if she's dead or not. She's like, oh, she could be dead, she could be alive somewhere.
Yeah.
Who knows? Also ties back into her saying in this episode that she, the life with the husband and kids, she's never wanted that for herself. So the idea that she doesn't want kids also ties into, I think, the way that her mother was with them, and her fear that she'd be the same as that. And that's probably a big part of why she's scared of having kids and doesn't want them.
I do wonder if that's going to be something that by the end of the show, where when she's accepted that she's not her mother, she'll be like, do you know what, maybe I could have kids.
Maybe. And then the other interesting part, of course, is when he is asking about, Owen was always there, and the way she talks about him, she speaks, it's very fondly. It's like, no, like, he was always there, and he was always there to support me, he was always there to be like, my rock, like, he was always this central figure that made things easier. And then she brings up, when he said, oh, we're connected somehow, and, back when she thought he was crazy, and he was, like, doing the spy thing. And it's like, and I thought he was crazy, like, saying all that, but, like, he kept being there. In every single, like, reality, he was there to help. And he was always helping, in some way.
It's funny how, he said that, so now she's thinking, oh, what if? When obviously we've seen it's just the crossed wires.
Yeah. Which I kind of like, actually. I like the idea of them finding meaning in something that really has no meaning, and how that in life is kind of true for a lot of things, where we find meaning in things that aren't really meaningful, but we take it as something.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with Owen seeing patterns, that's humans as a nutshell. We find, every time someone sees, the Virgin Mary in their toast, it's because, in concept, it's because we are trained to look for patterns, evolutionary. We can't help it. We
obviously, religion's the extreme end of that stick, where you're looking for big answers.
I was just using that as an idea of you see something.
But just the idea that they think, oh, maybe we are connected, maybe there was a... And this is the thing, just because this is what can, like, maybe set someone on the path of, like, finding each other and having a romantic interest in each other, doesn't mean that romantic interest was never, like, wasn't real anyway. That's just what let them discover it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
There's a beauty to that. There's a beauty of the randomness, like, sort of putting them together. You want to call that fate? Then go ahead. TV show.
Yeah, why not?
Can be fate, sure. But hey, so no, that's it's her admitting her own faults and her admitting all this. And I think it's interesting that Owen wasn't out yet, and we see him, like, turn someone else down. He's, the other woman who, he's like, no, I'm better alone, and he leaves, and there's that joke where the driver said that every time they pull a job he gets shot, and then when he comes back to the car he's like, yeah, she shot me. That's how she got out.
Yeah, it was just like, it was only in the shoulder though, so it wasn't too bad.
Keeps getting shot.
I thought that it was interesting itself because, before when he was like, oh, how did he better be dead? How did you how did you get here? And she's like, no, I just convince people. People just do what I want, right? And then her talking about her mother and being like, oh no, she's just convincing. He has this way of manipulating you, and then ultimately we find out after that, no, she just shot him.
Yeah, and then on top of that,
just this threat.
But to analyze it from his point of view or from his side of things, the idea that every time he goes on one of these jobs, his poor driver gets shot. The idea that when he thinks he's doing something important, from his delusions, from his spy world, someone gets hurt. Some normal person takes a hit for it. Not literally getting shot or literally getting hit, but just.
Yeah, he even has that moment of acknowledgement at the start where he says, "Oh, when the guy says, oh, I always get shot," and he goes, "No, you don't." It's like, "Yeah, I do." Look, and he lists off like 5 jobs.
Yeah.
And he's like, I never noticed that, and I never noticed that pattern.
Yeah, and he used the word pattern specifically, which I thought was notable.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's this idea that he's not realizing how his behavior is affecting other people that don't see the world the way he does. So again, but interesting when he wakes up at the end, it feels a lot. It feels very trepidatious. Now I'm assuming we'll get his interview in some capacity. You would think, unless they want to shield that from us and discover things later.
Maybe. I'm not even sure the interview is like, oh yeah, okay, we have to do that. I'm not. It might be just something they're doing with her because they.
Oh
know,
yeah, sure, yeah, okay, I can see that.
She's a bit on the fence.
Which, by the way, I loved having the wall of TVs behind her with the close-up cameras of like her eyes and stuff.
Yeah.
It would give it this really Clockwork Orange, like otherworldly, psychedelic visual to it.
It reminded me of the test in Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, yeah. Makes me think of Lost a little bit. Close up of the eyes. But yeah, Blade Runner, Clockwork Orange, these things all kind of spring to mind. So yeah. Yeah. Other brief point, we find out that Azumi and Doctor, I keep saying Thoreau, I should say his name, Mantle Ray. We find out they've got.
It's easier just to say Thoreau. Yeah.
They've got a history because she calls him Sir, and he's like, "You don't have to call me Sir. We've been intimate," and that's all we get. And I'm like, how shame do you think she felt when she caught him with the jacking off machine? In virtual, where he's just...
No, I don't think there was shame. I think it was pity.
Pity.
Yeah.
I wasn't really being serious about the shame. I was just joking that she should feel shame seeing that.
No, but seriously, because she clearly still respects him and maybe has feelings. I don't know, but when and she sees him like that.
Oh sure,
like,
yeah.
This is what you've become.
Oh sure, yeah. I wasn't making a serious comment. I was just saying,
I know.
She's been intimate with him, and then she walks in on him, and he's got a not a strap on. That's obviously a specific thing, but
something else entirely. Yeah.
Is this like the inverse of a strap on?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know.
I don't know what to call it. It's a box.
A dick
it's a
machine.
VR box.
I don't know.
Yeah, that'll do.
Anyway, that's oh that God, that reminded me of something that I didn't talk about on TV for the Multiverse this week. I wanted to talk about how Lex Luthor in 1994 had better VR than we have in 2018. And I forgot to talk about it. Damn it!
Lex is always ahead of the time.
Like, it's like this perfect thing. He's flying as if he's Superman, and then it cuts to him taking off what looks like, it actually looks like an Oculus Rift. It's like, it's the same kind of thing with a strap. And I'm like, bullshit. The PS1 wasn't even out yet. Bullshit.
Yeah. Hey, Lex is ahead of his time, and you know it.
And that now that point is just lost randomly in episode 5 of Maniac.
Someone will discover the link one day.
Jesus. Anyway.
I did really like this episode though. We talked a lot, a lot of the meat there, but it's a lot of fun in the heist itself. Again, the direction. It's just stunning. Like the dance number is just. It's this great little choreographed shot thing.
Yeah. When they're standing in the main room and the host is making them dance, and Muramoto's in the middle.
In the middle of them.
I will say what was funny about that scene to me is, and I'm not someone who's into like musicals or dancing or anything like that, but even to my layman eyes, I was like, all right, Emma Stone can clearly dance, and the other two clearly cannot. Because like she was moving with this grace, she had this rhythm, it was all kind of perfect and sleek.
She was having fun, and she was you could see at points her holding back the smirk of like, oh, I'm doing better than these guys.
And then you look at Jonah Hill and the actor playing Muramoto, and I mean, obviously he's meant to be a zombie Muramoto, so I won't judge him necessarily.
He gets away with it, yeah.
But Jonah Hill just looks so stiff, and this could just be acting. This could be like, no, the character wouldn't know how to dance, but it just. Whereas Emma Stone, I feel like, she's about to burst into a scene from La La Land at any moment. Like
she does look like she's gonna smirk at just how much better she is, doesn't she?
But it stuck out to me in that scene.
Yeah.
So I
fun scene still.
I wanted to mention it. Yeah. I think I liked the last one more. I think the last one, like, I think
a bit more of a punch to it.
Yeah, I like this. The interview scene in this, I think, is one of the best scenes of the show so far. I think as a whole episode, though, I think I prefer episode 4. But we'll see what they do next time. Now that they've both had their B period, is there going to be like an episode of setup and then like 2 or 3 episodes in the sea?
Yeah, I see some downtime and then 2. So what were the 6 would be downtime, 7, 8 is the sea pill.
Yeah.
And then we got 9, 10 as.
It may be it could be longer in the sea pill.
It could be,
depending on what they're doing. So, but hey, so a lot of stuff to chew on. But that is episode 5 of Maniac. So. By all means, let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. You can get some bonuses, you get some stuff early, but mostly you get a warm, mildly fuzzy feeling in your stomach for helping us out. But you can do that. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?